Hello, Katrina.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I can hear you. I'm in a car though, and the reception is fairly poor, so I apologize in advance for any choppiness.
That's okay.
All right. So, we are going to be doing your pop culture topic. So, why don't you tell me what your pop culture topic is and give me a quick summary, and then tell me how it relates to a few of the topics that we covered in the course.
So, I kind of wanted to do my topic on uh like medical shows. A lot of them here recently, for example, The Resident, that shows on Netflix, kind of shows doctors and even nurses in their different roles and things they encounter, things they experience throughout their careers. I think they just came out with another show. I don't remember what platform it's on, but it's called The Pit, which is kind of a play or a brought to realization of life in the emergency department and kind of the things that they experience and go through. And then I was going to kind of bring in also the documentaries that they've done on Netflix and those types of um, different streaming apps about doctors or nurses or things of that matter, where maybe the integrity of uh, the career itself was kind of jeopardized because those individuals now have taken away, say, a sense of trust that people hold in, say, doctors and nurses now. So, um, so that's why I wanted to do that, because there's a lot of ethical concepts that revolve around healthcare, and uh, and since I work in it, I can actually, you know, talk about my own experiences with it, but and how true or how real some of these shows do come across and what actually does happen. Uh, so that's why I chose those. The Some ethical theories I felt that relate would be kind of theories of virtue ethics. What is expected of a doctor or a nurse? How would someone of virtue would react or should act in those positions? Um, and also say maybe some of those ethical or moral problems that come across. So euthanasia is a big one. You know, people coming to doctors and asking them, like, hey, I'm on my last days. I don't have much longer. I don't want to go through chemo. Can you help me out? And the doctor now has to make this, ethical dilemma of, what is right and what is wrong. So that's one example. Abortion, right? We go through that depending on where you are in the country. Uh, Doctors can say yes or no to someone who wanting to make that decision to have an abortion. Um, and there was another one I was going to bring up, but right now those are the few that come off the top of my head that I wanted to talk about or relate on.
Okay. Well, my first question is, can you give me some examples from any one of these shows that you mentioned of either virtue or euthanasia or abortion coming up as an issue in the show?
Hmm. So, okay, I think there was an episode. I'm on I think I'm on season 3, so it was either season 2 or season 1. There was a woman, she was a friend of a doctor's in the show, and she was, undergoing breast cancer. Um, she expressed to the doctor that, she still wanted to have children. She wanted to still be able to have children, and they were trying to explain to her, you're getting chemo, you're getting this, you're getting this treatment. The likelihood of you having a child would be low, or if you were to have a child, the likelihood of that child being born with possible defects would be high because of the chemo, because of all the treatments that you would be getting. We don't know how that's going to react with the baby. So, the consideration of having abortion if you were to get pregnant this point forward would be something that she would need to talk about and they would need to discuss. And she expressed to them she's not going to ever have an abortion. If she's going to have a child, she will have the child. And it was a tough conversation because I feel like her doctor friend um was like, I don't want you to have a baby if it's going to be born with any type of issues or any type of problems. And she felt very strongly about if she were to get pregnant to have the abortion, where the patient or her friend, was like, no, like if I get pregnant, I want to have this child. I only have so many years left, and if I got pregnant, that means a miracle happened. So therefore, this will be a miracle baby. And later on in the show, like I think that was like season 2, they had that talk, and then season 3, she ends up getting pregnant. She coming to the doctor, telling her she was pregnant, and I think the doctor still had her views on it, like, are you sure you want to go through with this and what if that and da da da. I really think you shouldn't do this. You may not even survive having the baby. And again, she expressed to her like, no, I'm going to have this child. And it almost took her life, like having the birth almost took this woman's life because she wasn't completely strong, and she wasn't very strong, right? Because she went through chemo and she went through all these things that weakens your system. So mom had to go through ICU, baby was born. They had to go through a small period of NICU, newborn ICU, and the baby was taken care of by this doctor who now had a whole new point of view on the whole situation.
Okay. What do you think do you think that that incident from the show has any particular takeaways for this issue, like the particular moral problem that it's addressing?
It could provide people who feel very strongly for abortion. Um, it could provide them a different view or a different point of view on it, right? Some people get so stuck in the point of view like, oh, abortion is bad. You're taking a child's life. You're doing this. You're doing that. But it kind of seeing it in these shows gives you a couple different sides to see it, right? You get to see it from someone who does feel strongly about it, who is completely like, you should do it. It's, looking at it as a point of view for your health, blah, 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 to another point of view, like this should be a choice as well for someone. Um, and then if you were someone watching it and saying abortion is bad, you should never do it, even if it was, a concern for health or a concern for it, like maybe seeing that on TV, might help somebody who is strong one way or the other see it in a different way. And maybe think about it.
Okay, so
I
it's
don't know.
sort
Does
of
that make sense?
illustrating. Yeah, so are you saying it's sort of illustrating the pros and cons in a way that people from both sides can look at and understand?
Right. And that's what I was, it just it allows a whole audience, right, be able to take part in seeing a view of an ethical dilemma.
And you mentioned virtue. Did you think that this was an example that showed virtue, or did you think a different example showed virtue? What were you thinking there?
So like for virtue, um throughout the show, The Resident, there's many instances where the doctor, say for instance, Dr. Bell, who is the chief of surgeon, who became CEO, who got then downgraded back down to chief of surgeon. There was a, I think, a good example of virtue when he was dating a doctor. She was an oncology doctor, a cancer treatment doctor. He was dating her. And he found out that she was wrongly diagnosed with cancer and other like experimental medications for cancer. She was treating them with these things with them under the impression that they had cancer when in reality before they were even in her care, not once did they have any markers. There's certain, they're called cancer markers um in your blood. So they had none of these markers before they would go with her, but she would manipulate the lab work, or she would tell the patients, "Oh, well, you're right at the beginning of cancer, and if we catch this early, and treat you, then you have a high likelihood of surviving." So she was driving these super high survival rates for patients who had cancer when in reality they didn't. And now he's had to face now an instance of what's the right thing to do, right? Like, I'm dating her, I'm telling her I love her, I care about her, I would never want to hurt her, but my job as a doctor, my job as a human being is to people, right?
Okay. Okay. So you cut off after talking about how he has a role as a doctor, and he also is torn because he loves her.
Right. So I was saying, he had to make this, decision to turn her in because as a doctor, as something that he signed as a surgeon to do no harm to his patients, to, keep people safe, he had to make that tough choice to turn her into the federal government and have her completely, like, have her put in jail, had her license stripped of her as a doctor, like, that was a tough decision for him, but because of that ethical that ethics of virtue or virtual ethics, he had to make that decision, like, what would the right person in this situation do? Like, or what is the right as a
Okay.
doctor?
Is that how he describe? Is that how he described it? Is as what would what would a good person do? Was that his motivation in the end?
That's what it I'm gonna say that's what the show perceived it as because they kinda kept giving him this it kind of portrayed him as having an ultimatum, right? Like
Yeah.
if if he did nothing and he let this continue on and say she did get found out, say by somebody else, then his job now is in jeopardy because it's kind of he's a um accomplice, right, to her doing what she's doing because he knew about it the whole time and he did nothing.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that would be that.
Okay. Well, so it also kind of sounds like a conflict of duties to me, because it's a conflict of being faithful to his partner, and but it's also that's conflicting with his duty to not harm his patients, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that so if it is a virtue thing, is there a particular virtue that you think he was showing by doing that?
Uh, off the top of my head, no. I mean, I don't know, like
Okay. Well,
maybe
like
I
for
mean,
instance, honesty is a quality of a person that we call a virtue, or
maybe trust. Well,
charity, like being charitable to people is a virtue. Um, Moderation is a virtue, right? These are
I mean, it would be honesty, right? Like he needs to be both honest with himself, right? But at the same time, he's got to. I don't. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
okay. Maybe honesty then. Yeah, maybe honesty.
yeah,
Okay. What were her motivations? Was she did she think she was doing good, or did she have selfish motivations, or was it something else
it could
that
be
I'm
like
missing?
an egotism. You know, she was getting that sense of power, that sense of like I'm doing this, make myself look good, right? Like I'm doing it for numbers. I'm doing this for um, at whatever cost of the patient, right? No matter what it costs
Yeah,
the patient might live, the patient might die, but whatever the cost of the patient, it's going to make me look great, right? Because I'm curing these people of their cancer. Even though
yeah,
that patient might die with all the chemo and the radiation, you know, ultimately maybe the cancer disappeared. They were cancer free, but she ended up killing them. I mean, that
yeah,
because they kept getting sick, right? When you're under cancer or when you're under chemo and everything, your immune system just depletes. So you
yeah,
might be cancer free now, but your immune system sucks. So now when you go outside and you come in contact with people, now you're sick and that she could catch this person could catch a common cold after all these treatments and everything, and they can go and get pneumonia and die. And that's not her fault because she cured cancer. It's now the patient's fault because they decided to go out in public and decided to get them sick, knowing that, she told them these chemo treatments are going to deplete your immune system. So you have to be careful when you're out in public, so
yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds pretty good to me. Do you have any last thoughts to that you want to get off your chest about this subject before we call it a night?
um not really. I think I spoke on the I mean, I spoke on the euthanasia part before. I think even when I was talking about the death penalty, I kind of talk about the euthanasia, but in in the hospital, let's say for instance, uh, we have, like I was saying about cancer patients, is like that's the biggest one with euthanasia to me is cancer patients. They are on hospice. They have an X amount of days left. You know, they know you have less than 6 months to live. You know, that person may want to decide, like, I don't want to go through this for the next 6 months. I don't want to go through this. I don't want to go through chemo. I don't want, and they talk to these doctors and ask them, hey, how can you help me end this suffering so that I don't have to go through this and put my family through this? And that's another hard decision for doctors, right? Because now, I mean, I'm trying to think. I feel like I've seen an episode where there was a similar situation. I just can't think of or can't remember the entire episode off the top of my head, but it was a similar situation where they knew they didn't have much longer. And they told the doctor, like, I don't want to be hooked up to a million things. I don't want to be attached to a lot of things if all it's going to do is just keep me alive for your guys' own good. Like, if I can't breathe without it, then why keep me there? Right. And then
Sure.
the family around that person is all in tears, upset and frustrated that they're deciding to do this. But at the same time, why put them through that? Right. So
Yeah.
I just don't remember the episode exactly that I watched, but it was something where the family member expressed to them while others were around them, like, hey, I don't want this anymore. So that kind of runs along the same lines of the euthanasia. And he may not be giving her a drug to immediately die, but he's discontinuing all the support mechanisms to keep this person alive. Like, could that be the same thing? Can that be similar? Or seen as similar? We're not treating them anymore. So we're just allowing the person to now die on their own recognizance.
Yeah. 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 And
So
as a doctor, they have a dilemma for sure. Again, as to how to
yeah,
handle those kinds of situations for sure.
yeah.
Okay.
See it all
Well,
the
thank you,
time.
Katrina. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's why they have like triage at a hospital, right?
Yeah,
Those
they have
kinds of
triage, and
things.
then we have an ethics committee that comes up and talks to the patients
Yeah.
and the families when we express, like, hey, there's a dynamic here that we're not getting through. Can we have somebody come up and help us handle this?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Katrina, and I'll let you go for the night. If you have any last questions for me for the last week of the class, you can just email me. But
Okay.
otherwise, have a good night. Have a good summer as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bye.
Bye bye.